On Thanksgiving Eve, 1971, a man walked up to the Northwest Orient Airlines counter at Portland International Airport. He was in his mid-40s, dressed in a dark suit, white shirt, and a black tie. He bought a one-way ticket to Seattle, paying in cash. He gave his name as Dan Cooper. This ordinary-looking businessman was about to become the subject of one of the most baffling and enduring mysteries in American history. Little did anyone know, he was carrying a briefcase that would change everything. Once aboard Flight 305, a Boeing 727, Cooper sat in the back, seat 18C. He lit a cigarette and ordered a bourbon and soda. As the plane took off, he handed a note to a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. Thinking it was just another lonely businessman's phone number, she slipped it into her pocket. But Cooper leaned closer and said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Florence's blood ran cold. The note was neatly printed, demanding $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills and 4 parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve. He showed her a glimpse of what looked like red sticks and wires inside his briefcase. The flight crew was immediately alerted, and the pilot contacted air traffic control. The airline's president, Donald Nyrup, authorized the full payment of the ransom, prioritizing the safety of the 36 passengers and 6 crew members on board. The passengers were told there was a minor mechanical issue causing them to circle over Puget Sound near Seattle. They had no idea a high-stakes drama was unfolding just rows away from them. On the ground, the FBI and Seattle police scrambled to gather the money and parachutes. The cash was sourced from several Seattle banks, and every single one of the 10,000 $20 bills was microfilmed for tracking. The parachutes were obtained from a local skydiving school. After nearly 2 hours of circling, Flight 305 finally landed at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Cooper demanded the plane be parked in an isolated, well-lit area far from the main terminal. Once his demands were met, an airline employee brought the cash and parachutes aboard. Cooper then calmly allowed all passengers and 2 of the flight attendants, including Florence, to leave the plane. He was now alone with the pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and 1 remaining flight attendant, Tina Mucklow. While the plane was being refueled, Cooper laid out his very specific flight plan. He wanted to fly to Mexico City, but at a low altitude of 10,000 feet and a slow airspeed of about 100 knots, just above the plane's stalling speed. He also specified that the landing gear must remain down and the wing flaps set at 15 degrees. This was a strange and dangerous request. The pilots explained that with this flight configuration, they wouldn't have enough fuel to reach Mexico City. After some negotiation, they agreed on a refueling stop in Reno, Nevada. Cooper also instructed them to leave the rear air stairs, the staircase at the back of the 727 down during takeoff. The pilots objected, stating it was unsafe, but Cooper was insistent. This was the crucial part of his plan. The Boeing 727 was unique in that it was one of the few commercial airliners with rear air stairs that could be opened in flight. Around 7:40 p.m., Flight 305 took off from Seattle, headed for Reno. 2 F-106 fighter jets from a nearby Air Force base were scrambled to trail the airliner, but they were ordered to keep their distance to avoid spooking Cooper. They never made visual contact. It was a dark, stormy night with heavy rain and low cloud cover, making any kind of visual surveillance nearly impossible. Sometime after 8 p.m., somewhere between Seattle and Reno, a warning light flashed in the cockpit, indicating that the aft air stair had been activated. The crew asked Cooper over the intercom if he needed anything. His calm reply was simply, "No." That was the last anyone ever heard from Dan Cooper. When the plane landed in Reno, a couple of hours later, authorities swarmed the aircraft. They found it empty. Cooper, the money, and 2 of the parachutes were gone. He had jumped from the back of the plane into the freezing, rainy night, somewhere over the rugged, forested wilderness of southwestern Washington state. An intense manhunt began immediately. one of the largest and longest in U.S. history. The FBI, along with local law enforcement and military personnel, scoured the projected jump zone. They searched on foot, in vehicles, and from helicopters. But the terrain was incredibly difficult: dense forests, mountains, and rivers, and the weather was terrible. Despite their best efforts, they found nothing. No parachute, no briefcase, no money, and no sign of D.B. Cooper. The name, by the way, became D.B. Cooper due to a media miscommunication with the reporter, and it stuck. The man had only ever identified himself as Dan Cooper. For years, the case went cold. The FBI investigated over 800 suspects, but could never definitively identify the skyjacker. Many experts believed Cooper couldn't have survived the jump. He leaped into a 200-mile-per-hour wind, with freezing rain at night, into a dense forest, wearing only a business suit and loafers. The parachute he used was an older, less steerable model. The odds were stacked against him. Then, in 1980, 9 years after the jump, a little boy named Brian Ingram was digging a fire pit on the sandy banks of the Columbia River, near a place called Tennabar. About 20 miles from the suspected jump zone, he uncovered 3 rotting bundles of cash. When his family took the money to the authorities, the FBI confirmed the serial numbers matched the ransom money given to D.B. Cooper. They found nearly $6,000. This discovery only deepened the mystery. Why was only a portion of the money found? And how did it get there? Did it wash down from the mountains? Was it buried by Cooper himself? The location didn't quite line up with the flight path, suggesting the FBI's initial search area might have been wrong. Over the decades, the D.B. Cooper case has become a modern legend. Countless theories have emerged. Some believe he died in the jump and his body was never found. Others are convinced he survived and lived out his life in anonymity. Dozens of people have claimed to be Cooper or have been named as suspects by family and friends. One of the most compelling was a man named Richard McCoy Jr., a Vietnam veteran and skydiving enthusiast who conducted a similar copycat hijacking just a few months after Cooper's. But McCoy was eventually ruled out due to physical mismatches and other evidence. In 2016, after 45 years of active investigation, the FBI officially closed the D.B. Cooper case, concluding that their resources would be better used on other priorities. They left the file open, however, in case any definitive physical evidence ever emerged. To this day, the tie Cooper left behind on the plane is the only piece of physical evidence directly linked to him. Advanced DNA analysis has been attempted on it, but the results have been inconclusive. So what really happened to D.B. Cooper? Did he pull off the perfect crime, disappearing into the night with a fortune? Or did he meet his end in the vast, unforgiving wilderness of the Pacific Northwest? The man in the suit became a folk hero to some, a symbol of rebellion against the system. He was a ghost who boarded a plane, committed an audacious crime, and then vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but a name, a legend, and one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. Thank you for watching. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries like this one, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. We'd love to hear your theories on D.B. Cooper in the comments below. See you next time.